Hey everyone, it's Stephanie again, and you're tuned into the review of Married at First Sight, Season 10, Episode 13. Okay, so let's just jump into it. This week's episode was a really good episode, and there was a lot of information and a lot of things happening. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Let's kick it off with Mindy and Zack. I would save them for the end, but I'm so proud of Mindy that I just want to jump in. So Mindy decides not to continue on with the marriage. We saw that this week. She finally, it's like, it's what we've all wanted for her, because we've been watching her be mistreated for so long, and Zack basically taking her for a ride. He's never really been committed. He just didn't want to look like a bad guy, which still shows up in the way that he responds to her not wanting to continue the marriage. Long story short, she meets with her friends, and they have this conversation about this big secret that he was saying that he knew about her that made her character look questionable. And it just came out that her ex-boyfriend wanted to pick her up from the airport, and her best friend, who I love, her best friend is like her guard dog, and she has been since day one, probably because she knew something was off. She had mentioned that whole scenario to Lindsay. Lindsay's the girl that Zack has been communicating with, and we see tapes that when Zack tells Mindy this, he says, oh, it's this person you don't even know, like even if I were to name them, you wouldn't even know. So Zack has been lying on top of lying. Zack is Michael 2.0, a lying liar who lies. And the biggest issue here is that he has such a loyalty to Lindsay, which is an emotional bond. As far as I'm concerned, he has such a loyalty to Mindy that he does not have for his wife. Did I call her Lindy? Lindsay, if I said that. He has such an emotional connection to her that he can't be as devoted to Mindy, which is all types of red flags. I mean, just throw red paint everywhere. Having the conversation or conversations and the dialogue and the exchanges behind Mindy's back was an issue. Shame on Lindsay, catch me in the parking lot, Lindsay, because that is like beyond girl code. That's just like, you're not a good person. Why you would reach out to this person and interject into their relationship is so inappropriate. No boundaries. For him to rely on you, for your friend your so-called friend not to know about it, and to continue this dialogue. And if we circle back a few weeks ago when all this came out, she said, I told him not to call me. We weren't going to talk until the cameras were off. So what that tells me, when this is what Lindsay says to Mindy when she's kind of confronting her about this, what that tells me is that her and Zack have probably talked about this marriage not continuing. Lindsay knows that she's a little bit of a dirtbag. And so she's like, listen, I'm not going to do this with you until the marriage is over, because I'm sure she knows what we all know, is that Zack is not going to continue to be in this marriage because he hasn't really been in it. That led me to believe that they had already had the scenario. So luckily she has this conversation, Mindy being she, with her friends. It all comes out that her best friend Shani happened to casually mention that to Lindsay, and that's who Zack has been communicating with. And then it all comes out when she confronts him, saying, this is what happened, this is the person who knew. And his response is so callous. His response is such a coward move. Well, I shouldn't have brought anything up. Yes, you should have, because there's a lot of information that you shouldn't have been engaging in, that I would need to know. And Mindy says, well, you mean you should have already told me? No, I shouldn't have brought anything up. So you would have just preferred to continue to lie. His response in terms of her not wanting to continue the marriage, which I'm so glad, like gold star for Mindy, every gold star for Mindy, because she stood up for herself. She was very direct. She was pretty black and white. Yes, she got emotional, understandably so, because her feelings are hurt. She really committed to this. She would have been a great partner for someone who wanted to be with her, or really engage in this experiment. But she was like, leave your key, get everything you got, take your hair curlers, take your volumizing mousse, and get out, because there's nothing left for you here. And we saw her really, like, almost her whole body language, her whole affect really just looked even more superior, because she was carrying herself so lowly, just trying to work this out. And I'm so glad it came out, because she would have continued to make it work and try to make it work and, you know, take these crumbs, and in 8 weeks she would have got her feelings hurt. He didn't even fight for her, because he really didn't want to be there. And then he continues to tell these stories. He's honest to her, because he has to be, because she knows the information. But when Dr. Viviana does her rounds this week, which she does, you know, he says something, he avoids saying that he had a lie, or he lied, and he basically looks at it differently. He can't even be honest about it. Thank God she already knew, you know. And it was funny to watch Dr. Viviana, like, with this big smile on her face when she met with Mindy, because she knew that that wasn't the relationship for her, or it wasn't working out for her. And Zack is telling a completely different story, and even Dr. Viviana is like, okay, I'm confused, because this is a lie. There was lying going on. Like, you're not calling it that, but that's what it is. So anyways, we've wasted too much time with Zack and his hair. He'll bounce back somewhere else, I'm sure. I wish he would have just manned up and just at the beginning said that this wasn't for him. I could respect that. I could respect, because everybody doesn't have to be attracted to everybody. Everybody doesn't have to want to be with everybody. That's the risk of this experiment. I could have respected that he said, you know what, she's a really good girl, but I don't see it working out. I don't have this XYZ that would keep me here, and I would rather break it off now and respect her than to drag her through the mud. He did not do that. So yeah, I'm just happy to see that Mindy kind of chose herself, and she'll be better off for it, and she will find somebody else, and she will have better boundaries in that relationship because of this experiment. So I wish her well, and that is Zack and Mindy. Next, we have Jessica and Austin. So Jessica and Austin continue to do really well. You know, the only thing that I would say is Jessica's incessant I love you thing. It's like, I watched it this week and I was like, okay, are the producers like prompting her to bring this up? At this point, it's a running joke. At this point, it's like, okay, you guys don't have much entertainment content, okay? They have what we all are hoping these couple have, like a beautiful union and like getting to know each other and just like a very stable trajectory, which looks boring. You know, like a good relationship is often boring. Not that the relationship is boring, but there are no dramatic antics to, you know, if there are, that's a problem. But for TV wise, it's got to be something like, hey, you guys are doing too great. Let's throw this monkey wrench in there, because her, you know, her asking about the love thing is so annoying. It just makes her look annoying. Like, and I really like the two of them together. I like her, I like him, but she's annoying me to where I just don't even want to watch them anymore. Austin, I love that he is not being pushed into this love thing. Like he has said it till he is blue in the face that he's not going to say it until he's ready, and it takes a certain amount of time for him. I believe that Austin loves her, honestly, but I think for him, he needs to wrap his mind around it, and he may feel it, but he's not comfortable in 5 weeks saying it, which I completely understand, because I wouldn't be either. Because to me, it's like there's so many other things to see, so many different aspects of a person to see, and I don't like that they even wanted her to say it. I know Dr. Viviana thought it was a good idea, and you know, she eventually says it, but for me, I only think it would be a good idea if you could handle the person not being ready to say it back, which I don't think she can. I mean, she held it together, but when Dr. Viviana was there, she said, hey, you know, I do love you, and he didn't say it back, and I'm glad he didn't. Like, he's not ready. It'll be so much more meaningful when he is ready. And you could see her being kind of sad that he didn't say it back, and it's just like, you know, this pissing contest of who's ready, who says it first, it's just so, it's so juvenile. And it's like, if you do feel that way, if you are afraid, which a lot of people are, if you are afraid to say it first, don't. But if we really look at it, we're talking about 5 weeks, okay? So it's a joke, and it's annoying, and it's like I told you guys about like what I think about the whole love thing. Be lovable, especially in this experiment. Don't force somebody to love you. And this incessant need for him to say I love you makes her unlovable to me. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it, y'all, but I'm just saying while I'm watching it, it's just like, ugh, it's unattractive. I'm sure it just makes him uncomfortable. Their only other thing was talking about his work schedule. And he has long work trips and he has to travel. That's an adjustment. It really depends, you know. Gone are the days where everybody comes home at 5 p.m. and you know, everybody has the same schedule. Like, life isn't like that. Work isn't like that. Businesses aren't like that. If you're an entrepreneur, which I come from a family of them, my husband's an entrepreneur, your schedules are like, get it when you get it. Get in where you get in. You know, there are certain deals and certain consultations and whatever that take place at different times. You know, I do sessions remotely, you know, with people in different cities. It just is what it is. So it's an adjustment, but for somebody who is more traditional, that's going to be something that is a little frustrating or a little hard to kind of deal with. And at the beginning of a marriage, it is difficult, you know. It's not like they were already dating for a long time, so she's kind of used to the schedule and they get married. But she'll adjust. I think she'll adjust. She already kind of started to, in terms of like, okay, well, the times you're out of town, I'll change my shift to this, because I believe she's a nurse. So she already has like somewhat, it's a traditional schedule for a nurse, but it's non-traditional in terms of like a 9 to 5. It's nurses often work like 12-hour shifts, so they work 3 days a week and that's their full time, and so on and so forth. So I think stuff like that, they'll get through it. It's not that big of a deal. They'll work it out, because everybody does, you know. Everybody does not do this traditional schedule anymore. I mean, we're seeing in the world how many meetings could have been emails. How many, you know, jobs could actually be remote, you know. So they'll figure that out. Other than that, I think they're fine. So that is Jessica and Austin. Next we have Katy and Derek. So Katy just really irritates me, y'all. She really does. I have very little patience for her. Katy like finds ways to sabotage. Like, she just can't be good. She's so insecure and she's so damaged by past dysfunctional relationships that she doesn't know how to function in a sense of normalcy. So she has her binoculars out. Like, you know those telescopes they used to buy kids, you know, who were really into science to look at the stars? I mean, she has that out on top of binoculars, on top of glasses, on top of contacts. She is looking hard, y'all, for this with a flashlight on top of it. Just add everything that you need to see to find issues with Derek. This week, they go back to their homes or they do something reminiscent of their youth to kind of find a way to connect in a different way, to see your significant other in a different way. And she pisses all over it. She really does. He takes her to, I think, his old house or something, or maybe old storage, where his mom saved all of these cute little things, and she starts to get really jealous about this cooler that this girl had made, I think in high school or maybe college, I don't know. And he ended up taking her on this date. That is very reflective of Derek. I think they snuck into a zoo or something and petted an elephant, I think. Derek is a wild card. Derek likes to do fun, crazy things like that. I don't know if it was her insecurity with the fact that he dated someone who was giving him what he likes, and the fact that she can't get over herself to be that. And she can be herself, but there's some flexibility there. You know, usually spouses rub off on each other. Like, I tend to be more regimented. My husband is like more fly by the seat of his pants. In certain areas that works for us, but in certain ways, his fly by the seat of his pants with certain things helps me to be like more spontaneous. And then I help to ground him in certain ways where I'm more regimented. And then, you know, we can flip-flop. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to do it. Once I decide, I'm doing it. Where he might be a little more thoughtful, so I might pull him aside. Like, you can be yourself, but also still be flexible and take the good aspects of your spouse and kind of let that rub off on you and just continue to grow, because that's what people do. They continue to grow. So Katy is just everything is a thing. I cannot stand watching her. I don't have patience. I'm 6 months pregnant. I do not have patience. Like, my patience is dwindling by the day, by the week, by the month. It's just like, I would not, I've been saying for weeks that they have a really good possibility of working out, but after this episode, I would not be surprised if Derek just didn't want to be bothered with her, because he can do no right, and he's not perfect, okay? Derek has had some issues, but not like Katy has. I mean, he's put you on his insurance. He is giving you your shots. What? That's a lot. That's a big commitment. Giving you your shots, your insulin shots, like, that's a scary thing to have to do. I learned that from my grandmother, many years ago, and I broke out into a full sweat. Eventually got used to it, but I just was so nervous. I didn't want to ruin it. I didn't want to mess it up. I didn't want to, do something wrong. And he has met you in I think that after the honeymoon, he gave her a shot. That's unnerving. And we saw that again this episode. He's put you on his insurance. Now that's love. That's grown-up love, okay? We can say I love you all we want, but if I put you on my insurance, because that costs. I've now taken you on as a cost. That should say a lot, and she's missing it. She's not seeing any of that. She's mad at Monica for being alive 10 years ago. I think they were like 16 or 17. She's just a fool. I can't give much more to Katy. If it doesn't work out, if he's apprehensive, he's smart to be, because she doesn't seem like she's willing to be flexible. She seems like she's, if they get married, or not get married, but if they stay together, that she's just going to be a wet noodle, just like raining on his parade all the time. That's just what I think. And that's not fun. She really needs to get over herself, because she knows it all. She knows it all. And she's just bratty and rude. Somebody posted a link. I saw the link of like bratty moments of her. I couldn't even get through the whole thing, because she irritates me too much. But she's just not a joy to be around, and she kind of ruins that. And what are you gonna say? Everybody has a past. There was life before you. Like, move on. And if you can't handle it, because she did ask a question, if you can't handle the answer, don't ask the question. If you know you're that green-eyed monster who gets really jealous, just don't ask it, because it really doesn't matter. Okay, we're here together now. We're married. Who cares? So poor Derek. Okay, poor Derek. That's my thing for this. That's my hashtag for them this week. Poor Derek. That's it. I know many of you probably feel the same. So that is Derek and Katy. Next we have Brandon and Taylor. Brandon and Taylor, you guys, I told you guys last week that I didn't want to see them on my screen. I don't know how they ended up back on my screen, but they did. Here's the thing. First of all, she heard my cries, or the Holy Spirit heard my cries for that wig, because she changed it. Still a little more work to be done there, but she changed it. Looks better, more reflective of a fresh start, fresh relationship. Here's the thing. I'm not buying what I saw this week. This week felt like I was in a funhouse mirror, and I couldn't find the real me anywhere. I was just like, is that me? Is that me? Is that me? That's what I'm looking at this week with Brandon and Taylor. Like, what did we watch? Everything seems so cute, so great. Here's the thing. If all of the stuff hadn't happened this season, that was just like shocking. Okay, the Panama incident, the continuous jabs at each other, the tape, not the tape, but the Instagram story, them going back and forth, them both, him really saying he doesn't want to be a part of it, and her not taking accountability. If none of that happened, I could see this episode, and I could really root for them. But this feels so fake to me. This feels like they are both uncomfortable, and they are trying, and let's just make it work. Like, they don't, even in their interactions, it doesn't feel authentic. They're like smiling at each other. It's like the whole episode for them was a great episode. They're talking, walls are coming down. They're having a good time. They're being more physical. She went to his old house, and they played basketball, and he moved back in, and now he's back in the bed. But it's just like, how did this happen? With all of these things, how did this happen? It almost feels like, okay, you know what? We got 3 more weeks of this. let's collect this check and let's make it work, because we can't keep doing what we've been doing. So end scene. In walks Taylor with a new wig. In walks Brandon with a new attitude. So I don't connect with it, you know. I trust my intuition more than anything. So seeing all of this, yeah, it's beautiful, but for me it was like watching a movie. Like, I couldn't take any of their scenes seriously because it did a complete 180. And it didn't have the time to do that. So I don't get it. It's not that I didn't want that for them, but you can't just like sweep away large issues and people aren't taking accountability, or people's feelings aren't really heard, or their feelings aren't really resolved, and so we just start over. Because to me, it's like you're building a house on quicksand. It will take nothing to get back to a point where they're not in a good place. So I couldn't buy it. That's what I have to say for Brandon and Taylor. You know, beautiful episode. It's such a great change from what we've been seeing, but the dichotomy is so great that it doesn't feel real to me. So that's Taylor and Brandon. Next we have Michael and Mika. So Michael and Mika. Do I need to say what I've been saying every week, that I don't get it from them at all? I don't feel a chemistry from them. Listen, I don't think that they were ready to be married, but I also think that Mika is more ready than he is. Mika, yes, her delivery, you know, because I see everybody's comments and I agree with you sometimes. Her delivery is it's not soft, or it's not welcoming. It could be very aggressive, which is just a turnoff in general, not just to men, even though to men, yes. But it could just be a turnoff to people, because it doesn't give you the warm and fuzzy. So in that way, her vulnerability and her delivery needs some work. But Michael is definitely not ready to be married. Michael came in with a bunch of baggage, and he carries that baggage, uses it, and validates bad behavior. They have a conversation about finances, and she brings it up. You know, I think she's trying, even though she goes off, which she has every right to go off this episode. How many times have we seen Michael lie? Michael has lied this whole season, and there's never fully an explanation that makes sense. We didn't get a real explanation about what happened with the plane incident, where he was saying, you know, if we don't have sex by the honeymoon, he can't really be invested. He never fully explained it himself. He never fully explained the whole job situation, the 3 options that he had, how he let that other one go, and then how what he's doing now is not even one of those options. He never explained that. Never really got to the yoga thing. I mean, he circled around the yoga thing. It was new management. It never made sense. There's another conversation that they had that he was, you know, lying about then too, and he snaps at her and says he doesn't trust her. You know, that trip to Jamaica, it must be to Jamaica Queens, because she's not going to Jamaica for their, even the anniversary gift was a lie, because he took so long to get out. He didn't even have a card that showed something that was reflective of an actual trip. So Michael continues to lie, and these are just the things that we've seen. So you have to think these people actually spend time together outside of filming. What else have we not seen? You know, I can see why she would be so angry. Imagine being put with a person and all you known about them for 5 weeks is lies on top of lies. And the 2 times that he has, you know, broken a wall and shared something was with the experts. The first time when he was crying with Pastor Cal, and he talked about, I don't even remember what he was talking about, but he got emotional. And the second time was this week with Dr. Viviana, and they really got into a very important thing, because he's been kind of even using being adopted as a crutch. Well, I've adopted, and that's now the storyline. Because I'm adopted, I do this. Because I'm adopted, I do that. I'm not saying it's not significant, but there's work to be done that should have been done prior to him signing up for this, because he is in no way, shape, or form ready to be a husband or a successful, fruitful member in a relationship. And this is why, like, therapy or like a third party is so important, because had it just been the 2 of them, they would have never got to that. Dr. Viviana or a third party, because I've done lots of couples counseling, and I've done family counseling. People are very different when there's a third party there. They present their best selves. And so just having the dialogue in a way that forces people to listen, because an impartial party is in there, changes everything. So now you're able to hear each other, and you're also able to speak, because a lot of times you get upset, you get heated, and you just cut people off. It's so important to have that to, some people are still caught up in, oh, therapy means I'm crazy, or I have issues, or I can't do it by myself. Nobody can. If you think you're doing anything really by yourself, in some capacity, it's connected to somebody else. And it's beneficial for everyone, because everyone has stuff going on. So if anything, I like to describe therapy as just a conversation. Let's start there. Let's take out all these other terms that people Google or think they know or associate with negative connotations, and have a conversation, and everyone can benefit from a conversation. So they get to the meat of the issue. Well, let me circle back. He basically shows her an offer letter. This is when I knew that he was on some BS, okay? Because if you're going to show an offer letter, show the offer letter. She grabs his hand. She's trying to connect with him and make it a positive experience. She shows him the information in black and white. Now let me see you. He shows her an offer letter. If you show the offer letter, that should be it. Then he has to follow up with a number on his phone. For me, I'd be like, what is this? For me, it's what are you doing? You're already giving me a red flag, because you have this sidebar calculator on your phone where you have to explain something. The explanation doesn't make sense. And this is why Mika, people might think that she's too aggressive, but I don't blame her at this point, because it's almost like she probably feels like, am I crazy? Because I keep getting all these lies. Nothing is making sense to me, but I'm being forced to feel like it is making sense, or it is okay, and I'm not supposed to feel any kind of way about these things that don't make sense. And she's an analyst. She has a math degree. It's not adding up. And this is what, the millionth lie that we've seen or not seen. And she's frustrated, and she goes off because he says, he is up for a conversation. The moment she even brings up finances, his whole body language changed, okay? Because he doesn't want to talk about anything that he has to prove. He will talk in circles about making the relationship better, or, getting to a good place, or what he needs to do as a husband or whatever. But when it's about real things, he doesn't get to the meat and potatoes. She is a meat and potatoes type of girl. Just tell me this. Honestly, they should have had this conversation when they came back from the honeymoon. A lot of them do. Usually they come back from the honeymoon, they talk about finances, boom, it's done. She hasn't been able to get a real answer from Michael. Okay, so this is week 5. So she, of course, flips out, and I don't blame her, because if we were in situations like that where everything was smoke and mirrors, you at some point would lose it, and it doesn't have to come off nicely, because he's lying. And this vulnerability that he is requiring from her, for me, honesty supersedes vulnerability, especially at the beginning. If we get into this experiment, day 1, I don't necessarily owe you vulnerability. You do owe me honesty, though, because if we build a relationship on lies, there's going to be none of that. So for everybody who's saying, well, she's not vulnerable, she's not easy to talk to, he's been lying to her the whole time. I get that she's not, and there have been some times where I've been like, God, girl, you need to get it together, because your fangs are out unnecessarily. So I agree, but sometimes they need to be out. And when with a charlatan like Michael, I don't blame her, because imagine how life would go on if she just took him at his word, which doesn't mean anything, because he's not honest. So I get that she's really frustrated, and I get that she's not happy. When they meet with Dr. Viviana, they really get to the meat and potatoes of it, and his whole storytelling and where that narrative comes from. The narrative comes from him not being accepted when he was younger, him creating stories about his mom and or lack thereof, and being adopted, all of these things, which are really deep-seated issues, which is why I said he doesn't need to be married. He should not have done this experiment, because he has been skating through life on this whole narrative, and now he brings that baggage to his wife, and now his wife has to be his therapist, and his wife cannot be his therapist. Even a therapist's wife can't be a therapist to their husband. They have insight. I have great insight, but I don't give my husband therapy. It doesn't work that way. And it's not her job to fix his issues, his deep-seated issues that he really should have worked on resolving prior to getting into a significant relationship. Because now it's all of these things that are derived from this issue that she now has to deal with, and it's not fair to her. So yes, we got to the meat and potatoes of it. He got emotional about it, which, you know, it's really like a pain point for him. But once again, you were not ready for this, because regardless of how significant the crux of the issue is, it still isn't fair to her. You know, it's not like, oh, well, I was abused as a kid, so I'm going to abuse my spouse. Whoa, okay, you were abused as a kid. You're not responsible for the conditioning or for the trauma of your childhood, but you are responsible for the healing of it in your adulthood. 100%. You are responsible to change that conditioning in your adulthood. You don't get to carry it around and fling it at people, and say, well, this is why, because it's not fair. And he will carry that into a family, and he will teach his kids to be little liars who lie, because that's what he knows to do, and it isn't fair. So this whole experiment has been marred by all of his issues that she now has to take, and she has to make sense of it. And now we got 3 weeks left to go, 2 weeks left to go. So this week, I'm glad they came to a point where they really got into the issues, where we really got to see, because him saying, well, I'm adopted, so this is what it is. No, that's not enough. Now, if I was in a session with him, I would have pushed to where we would have gotten to, okay, let's connect the emotions associated with that and the experiences associated with that. But that's all he was telling her. And so it felt like, I'm adopted, this is why. Get over it. You can't build a life with someone like that. So yes, she needs to soften her fangs. Yes, she needs to be more vulnerable, but she can't even be vulnerable. And I wouldn't even advise her to be vulnerable with someone who is completely dishonest, regardless of why. We always have a reason why, you know, there's always a sufficient reason why we can say we do what we do. And it's like, oh, that makes sense, but it's not okay. So that's my 2 cents for Michael and Mika. I don't know where I see them, because I don't think that they've even begun. Like, I think that they've had 5 weeks of struggling or inauthentic conversations or a disconnect. It started off really badly. Lack of trust, terrible foundation. Like, for me, if they have a better week next week, that will be week 1. Because even the decent times in the past, they've all been based on a lie. You know, even saying I'll do better when you haven't done better. And yes, he's operating on autopilot, so he's kind of used to creating these things, so he probably doesn't think about it anymore. But you know, this is why you have to like push in black and white. Let me see the offer letter. And it's always about the lie, not necessarily what you lied about, because now I have to question everything you say. I know he was ashamed about the number. He makes significantly less than he wanted to or he was supposed to. She could have worked with that, because it would have been the truth. Now it's not about the number, it's about the lie. And that's about you as a person and how you connect to other people. So it's so much bigger than that. It would have just been easier to say, listen, this is what I was supposed to make, this is what's going on now. She could have had her feelings about it. Jessica had her feelings about what Austin makes, but okay, he's starting again, starting a new career. So we'll figure it out. And that was that, and it hasn't come up since. So that is Michael and Mika. I don't really know what's gonna go on with them, but they haven't had a strong start. So I really don't know. I don't think they have enough time to really build a strong foundation, because now that the experiment is halfway over. But we shall see. But he definitely needs to get a therapist. They can all benefit from one. Okay, Zack, you need one too. But he definitely needs one, because his stuff is real and deep-seated, but it doesn't make it okay to kind of make other people pay for it. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Once again, you guys try to stay safe. I'm sending you guys all types of positive energy. I'm staying as positive as I can. I am not doing too much social media, and I am watching things that are uplifting. You know, I know a lot of people are watching like the quarantine movies or all these type of conspiracy movies. I don't know if that's for you, knock yourself out, but you know, I think that adds to like the anxiety of the times. But yeah, as always, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like, and I will see you guys next week. Everyone have a great weekend.